Greetings ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to part 2 of my card review series. Today we are looking at a bunch of new cards for the upcoming Hearthstone expansion Streets of Gadgetzan that is launching in early December and brings more than 130 new cards into the game. For part 1, check the link in the description box and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for all the latest news about Gadgetzan or other card game related stuff. So let's start with the first game for today. It's a new hunter epic called the Perennial Launcher, finally a new weapon, you might say, right? Well, the last new hunter weapon was released in Goblins vs Gnomes. After that, not a single new equipment was released. Unfortunately, the launcher is nothing to get too excited for. Costing 5 mana gives you 2 attack and 4 durability. Whenever you attack, you are spawning a 1/1 Piranha token on the board. On the positive side, the new tokens are beasts, so a possible addition to Beast Hunter. But on the other hand, for 5 mana the weapon is too slow, pushing too few damage in the long run. Right now there are rarely any late game oriented hunter builds available, because pushing damage and punish your opponent is providing you with a higher win rate. That means that you don't want to drop a slow weapon like the Piranha Launcher when you have the option to push way more damage earlier for the same amount of mana. In a slower focused hunter build, a weapon that can potentially hit for 8 points of damage while also spawning 4 small tokens can be providing a good enough value distribution, but in the mid-range and face hunter builds there is no place for the weapon right now. The weapon is for the hunter class below average at the moment, means a 2 out of 5 points. If Blizzard can't push a control hunter build anytime soon, which is a bit unlikely, the value might go up to 3 points. Next up is a Grimstreet Informant, another multi-class discover card that is part of the Grimy Goons. This one is so far the lowest cost multi-class card, and like the other 2 cards that were featured in part 1 of the series, you are discovering 1 card of each class that is part of the specific Mafia family. In the case of the Grimstreet Informant, it is of course a Hunter, Paladin and Warrior card. The stats are in line with the rest of the multi-class discover cards, giving you a small 1/1 creature on turn 2. Although there will be quite a few class cards to discover that are not very usable in some situations, for example Shield Slam and Hunter, you don't need to get too much value out of the card to have a decent play for turn 2. In that aspect, the card is definitely playable. A problem that might occur is the low amount of stats, which leads to a disadvantage against more aggressive decks that are pumping out stronger creatures on turn 1 and 2. With the provided amount of stats, the card is not a threat to most of the early cards. A mid-range shaman will just stomp over it with a Tunnel Trog and Totem Golem start. Especially Hunter might not want to play such a low impact card when going the mid-range route, and playing stronger cards on curve will provide him with a higher win rate. The same goes for the more aggressive Paladin builds that will emerge with the release of Gadgetzan, which leads to only Control Warrior and Paladin as a viable option for the card. If those two can find a space for it has to be seen. The card is solid enough to find some play, but my prediction is a very low amount of play in the end. Now we will look at the first new mage card, the epic Manic Soulcaster. A 3 mana creature with a literally nice body and a very interesting battlecry effect that will help some specific deck types. You can choose a friendly minion and a copy of that minion will go back into the deck. How crazy is that? The Soulcaster will allow for some great combinations and will definitely see a lot of play. It is not useful or playable in every mage deck, but it provides you with a tool against fatigue damage, gives you the option to play a strong minion again, and will fit greatly in the upcoming Kazagus Reno decks. Because the card is not a legendary card, you can play it even twice, giving you potentially 4 new copies of a minion if you have a Bronze Spear on the board. Another 6 scenario would be a Soulcaster on the board and playing another Soulcaster as the last card. Theoretically, it is now impossible to die because of the endless chain of new Soulcasters. There are definitely people who will try out this new Fatigue Mage, and chances are not too slim that it will work out decently. I'm very interested to see the card in action and expect it to be very good. A solid 4 out of 5 points. Next up we are starting to have a look at the so far revealed Paladin cards. Starting with the new legendary Wicca Flame Burnbristle, a 3 mana creature with a 2/2 in stats that has not only Divine Shield but also Taunt plus an additional effect. Whenever the card is dealing damage to a target regarding of a minion or hero, you are healing for the same amount of damage. The card is a bit tricky because it is coming so early into play. On turn 3 your hero is in many cases still at full health, so getting some additional healing might not be that helpful early on. Now imagine the card would come a few turns later with a bit higher stats and the amount of healing he could provide would be unbelievable insane. That is not happening of course, so we have to work with what we got. The Wicca Flame is still an excellent tool against aggro decks, will be necessary to target for 2 attacks while also healing you for at least 4 life. Furthermore, Paladin is one of a few classes that are able to buff single minions heavily. Dropping the Wicca Flame on turn 3 and then playing a Blessing of Kings onto the card on turn 4 can be a real threat for your opponent that he needs to target as soon as possible. With all the tools Paladin already has and is getting in the Gadgetzan expansion, the possibilities for the card are there. It has to be seen how much of that will see play in the end, but I wouldn't count the Burnbristle out right now. One huge disadvantage that also lies in the small amount of stats is a possibility for priests to easily steal it. A Kabal on the Burnbristle and priest will be very happy. Right now the card is a 3 out of 5, but has the chance to moving up in the rating depending on the rest of the cards in the set. A card that can work with the Wickerflame Bristleback and of course every other strong Paladin minion is the new Paladin secret Getaway Kodo. Whenever a friendly minion dies, you are returning that to your hand. While it looks like a mini duplicate secret, there's a difference in its wording. While a duplicate is giving you 2 copies of a minion, the Getaway Kodo is giving you the minion back into the hand. If that means that specific effects like death rattles might work differently, I don't know for sure right now. If they are still triggered, which they normally should because the minion still dies, then we are looking at a great new Paladin secret. Paladin has a high amount of good quality minions like Tyrant, Rex the Light Lord and more that are happy to get a second life. Right now I'm not convinced if the card is also enough to bring back the Mysterious Challenger's secret Paladin deck in a big way, but the chances are there. Playing the Challenger might of course conflict with cards like the Noble Sacrifice. You don't want to get back such a small minion with the Getaway Kodo, but maybe there is still enough value or even another secret in the Gadgetzan set that can push the old secret Paladin. Other than that, the card will find its way in mid to late game oriented Paladin builds without a problem. 4 out of 5 points. Another interesting new Paladin card is the Small Time Recruit spell that is focusing on smaller, more aggressive Paladin decks. For 3 mana you can draw 3 1-cost minions from your deck. With the addition of even more small creatures for Paladin and Gadgetzan, the amount of cards you can fetch here is pretty high, providing you with a solid search engine that is also slimming your deck, giving you higher chances to draw your bigger impact cards. Getting 3 cards for 3 mana is solid in itself, but Paladin as a class is also able to get value out of those smaller cards in a big way. Stuff like the Steward of Darkshire, Competitive Spirit or the Sword of Justice are in for some heavy spawning on the board. Playing 2 copies of the card early literally means that your deck has 8 cards less in the deck, which leads to a way higher chance for getting your big guns out while also increasing the amount of cards in your hand by a wide margin. So plenty of play for small creatures. In slower decks you will not see the card anytime soon of course, Divine Favor is the way to go here. How great the drawing engine in Aggro Paladin can be will show the next card that we're checking out now. Meanwhile the Small Time Recruits card is getting another 4 out of 5 in the right aggro deck, while overall the value is more in the 2 to 3 range for most other decks. The next drawing card for the Aggro Paladin is the Meanstreet Marshal, the second Paladin epic in the new set. A 1-drop with 1 attack and 2 life might not be too exciting, but the death rattle effect could change your opinion. If the minion dies while having 2 or more attack, you will draw an additional card. Paladin has the tools to easily buff his minions, so getting the card up to 2 attack isn't that of a problem. But is it worth it? Well, definitely if you are trying to push damage early on, but also wanting to fill your hand on the way to hit the face. You can easily play the Marshal on turn 1, then buff it on turn 2 with stuff like Divine Strength or Blessing of Might, while also dropping more 1-drops on the board. Even an Abusive Surgeon on the Marshal on turn 2 to trade with a minion or taunt is a viable move that would give you a card draw. While the hate for the card is kinda high on some forums, we're looking at a playable card that will be very annoying in Aggro Paladin. 3.5 for me. So far for the revealed Paladin cards. Next incoming are 3 Rogue cards. Let's start with the Lotus Assassin, an all new epic minion that might look like a power creep. 5 mana, 5/5 in stats and stealth sounds pretty familiar to me. Alright, this Dragonthorn Tiger is the same. But look at that, the assassin is getting more stuff than the tiger. Whenever it attacks and kills a minion, it will gain stealth again. Poor tiger. With the presented stats and the lack of 5 damage AoE spells, besides the new Dragon Priest spell, you can be sure to have at least a 1-for-1, but in most cases a 2-for-1 or even a 3-for-1 situation with the card. So that is really good value presented. The Stranglethorn Tiger will still see play from time to time in various numbers of decks, so the Lotus Assassin will be even more popular for sure. Another point to consider is of course the possibility to attack and kill a minion on one turn, then buffing your Lotus with Cold Blood and setting up lethal for the next turn without the need of an extra conceal. It will provide Rogue with another big threat to clear out the game, so definitely a good card. And also a bonus point for the nice artwork, but that is personal taste. The second revealed Rogue card so far is, well, another coin, the Counterfeit Coin. Like your starting coin, you're getting another mana crystal for one turn only. There's not much to say about the card other than that it gives you another combo activator or more card draws with the Gadgetzan Auctioneer. Would really love to see some different rogue themes instead of the combo style, but apparently besides that and Thief Rogue, Blizzard currently don't have a new import for rogue. At least you can now coin into Counterfeit Coin and you're getting an 8/8 Advent on turn 1. GG, well played. Definitely a good card, but a little bit too uncreative for my taste. And finally, we're checking out the Rogue Legendary for the set, Shaku the Collector. I just mentioned the Thief Rogue theme and the second Rogue style currently available, and the Legendary is definitely hitting in that direction. With delts included, you are getting a random card from your opponent's class every time the minion is attacking. He doesn't need to attack the face, but any attack is good for the effect to trigger. The stats are a bit underwhelming and you are not often getting more than one card out of the Shaku because of that. While the card is playable, it will not have the high impact that I would have wished for the new Rogue Legendary, and it won't push the Thief archetype into the top region of the meta. A neat little card that could have been so much more. And hey Blizzard, by the way, we are still waiting for a bit of extra healing for Rogue. Please do that. So far so good guys, that's the card review episode for today. The next one will be out on Wednesday evening. I hope to see you then again, and I'm out. See you.